Good evening, members. Agenda item 1, Chairman notices. I'd like to welcome you to this meeting of the Council on the 25th of August. My name is Councillor Boyce and I'm Chairman of the Council. Members, we are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to being recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Please note that the YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of the microphones. Therefore, can I ask that when invited to speak, you remember to turn on your microphone and turn it off when finished. Please remember to turn on all your microphones and turn it off when finished. Please reference a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers and keep your contribution as clear and concise as possible. Thank you, members. Agenda item 2, apologies for absence. Ms. Bird.
Apologies have been received from Councillor Channing, Councillor Hurd, Councillor Helm, Councillor Newton, Councillor Keys, Councillor May, Councillor Morgan, Councillor Morley and Councillor Tilt. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, declaration of interest. To disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interest, other registrable interest and non-registrable interest relating to the items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraph 8 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. You are reminded that you are also required to disclose any such interest as soon as you become aware, should the need arise throughout the meeting. Members' interest. Councillor Stamp.
Chairman, I'm going to have to ask, despite the training session this afternoon, and I've brought the notes, and I'm still none of the wiser. Thank you, Councillor Fluker. I'd just like to declare I'm a member of Essex County Council. There's no items on the agenda, but I'm not sure which one it is. So I was going to ask the question today. I forgot your name, Mr. Quelch, but I ran out of time. And it's like a non-pecuniary, but the equivalent of that. So I'll be guided by the monitoring officer, Chairman, please.
Well, it's your declaration.
But I've just asked for guidance.
I told the monitoring officer I wanted him down at the end of the way, out of the way. Mr. Quelch,
thank you.
Can you help Councillor Stamp?
I think I can. If there is an agenda, there's no need to declare your membership of Essex County Council if there's no agenda item relevant to that body. But if there is, then it would be an other registrable interest, because that will be in part 2 of your form, because Essex County Council is a body that is influencing that has public responsibilities, public duties.
Chairman, so I've got no interest.
Councillor Durham, there's your lead.
Well, Chairman, I was just going to say, if there is one, it would be another registrable interest, but so be it. I will declare it out of the interests of openness and transparency.
Councillor Fleming.
Thank you, Chair. The same, a registrable interest as a member of Essex County Council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other member? No? Right. Now we go to agenda item 4, which here says notice of motion. Now we are sort of having a combined thing here, because this is an extraordinary meeting of the council at the request of several members, and we're working to a motion proposed by Councillor Lagan. Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, firstly, I'd just like to thank yourself and officers for this extraordinary meeting that was requested by 16 members over half the council. So I appreciate the effort and the work that's gone in by officers as well. I'll read the motion. It's probably simple so that anybody who's listening can understand it. So it's notice of motion, pages 5 to 8. In accordance with the notice duly given under Procedure Rule 4, to receive the following motion from Councillors A.S. Fluker and KMH Lagan respectively. Little 1. that a working group is established to consider the 5-year housing land supply and that recommendations from this working group come back to full council for ratification. And little 2, that the working group consists of 3 Conservative, 3 Independent group and 3 non-aligned members, plus 1 person who is not a member of Malden District Council. Therefore, I submit the motion.
Right, thank you. Is that seconded? Do you wish to speak now or reserve your speech for later?
Much later, I hope, Chairman.
Well, I'm hoping it's not much later because this seems to me to be quite a straightforward issue. Does any member wish to speak at this time? Councillor Stamp.
Chairman, I've got an amendment, so shall I wait until everybody's spoken, Chair? I'll be guided by you, but I'd like to amend the motion.
Which part? 1 or 2?
I would like to amend 2.
Right, well, for the moment then, can I put little 1 to the meeting for approval or otherwise? Okay, so those in favour of the...
Those 2, but that's not on that motion.
Your right to speak, Councillor Fluker.
Well, Chairman, before I do, I just wanted to seek your guidance. I was going to propose an additional motion. So it would be an amendment, but it would be in addition to 1 and 2.
I think you can propose. You can propose an amendment if it's a viable amendment. But at the moment, we'll just get the council agreement to set up a working group. Is that agreed? Everybody happy with that? No. Right? No.
Sorry, Chairman, because my amendment speaks to number 1, Roman 1. So it would be.
All right. Okay.
So, Chairman, my amendment is that we agree that wording, but in addition, that the working group also considers the procedures used by officers to initially approve and recommend development sites following the call for site process.
I don't think that would be a valid amendment.
Well, then it will go as a motion to council.
Because it changes, in my view, I'll refer to the monitoring officer, it changes the notice of motion. And the other question, has Councillor Lagan agreed to this amendment?
Yes, Chairman, yes. Oh, sorry, he can speak for himself, of course.
Yes, I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Mr. Quelch, is that a valid amendment?
Could Councillor Fluker repeat his amendment?
So this would be in addition to 1, although in my mind I think we should take it as 3. That the working group also considers the procedures used by officers to initially approve and recommend development sites following the call for sites process. And Chairman, the reason why I'm tabling this is that this motion that we've tried to bring before council, it started as something completely different, and this is where it ended up. And I think there's a quite valid reasons for that, Chairman. But I think that members that have been on this council for any length of time will remember that when we looked at the LDP last time, members were very, very much involved right from the beginning, to the point of, and I can hear my friend to the right agreeing, to the point, Chairman, where we looked at sites, we looked at where we wanted to have development, we looked at the principle of development, did we want one large development? And I can remember we had elongated discussions for quite some time, and I'm sure you'll remember.
I do.
On pepper potting.
I do.
So on pepper potting. And we seem to have seemed to have lost that opportunity, Chairman, and one of the fundamental reasons for members to be elected to this council is to shape this district. And I believe, Chairman, that opportunity has gone.
Right. Well,
thank you.
I have some concerns about that, but Mr. Welch.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I agree with you, Chairman, that is a different motion. The call for sites is really unrelated to the 5-year housing land supply. So what should have happened is Councillor Fluker should have put in a rule for motion because it's a completely separate subject.
Look, I agree with the monitoring officer, and I know that you have the final word, but I think if one goes back through the email trail behind this motion, but as I said, Chairman, I'll bring forward another motion.
Can we assume that the working group, when established, will be able to take whatever evidence it wishes to take?
Well, Chairman, I think only if we agree the terms of reference tonight, and I don't see where that
No,
appears
I don't
in
think
this
that's
report.
fantastic. Councillor Siddle.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I would consider that particular motion idea would actually come to the terms of reference of the local development plan policy group rather than this working group. So it's part of that process. It's part of that working group. It's part of their terms of reference. So I can see what Councillor Fluker is saying, and perhaps as an item on that working group needs to be that we look at those sites as a way of getting around this. So that could be an agenda item at that particular working group.
You allow me to come back. Look, I'm agreeing with what everybody's saying.
Well, I think my advice, and Councillor Siddle, I think, is basically agreeing with what with the advice that the monitoring officer have said. It would be better served by the working group taking this evidence, calling for this evidence itself. Right, Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Chair. Would it be advantageous if we actually looked at the working group's terms of reference?
Well, again, that's not part of the motion. Mr. Quelch, or Mr. Dodson, could you advise me, please?
Well, Chairman, I mean, there is an officer response report, which maybe, Chairman, you feel will be appropriate for Mr. Dodson to explain that, because a working group should really have terms of reference, and the officer's recommendation for terms of reference fits within the motion of Councillor Lagan. So if you think that will be a good thing, because there needs to be some terms of reference.
Yeah, that's recommendation little 3 in that report, members. So at the present, can we stick with the motion as proposed? And I'll not take a vote on little 1 at the moment, but we'll go on to the little 2. Councillor Stamp.
Yes, Chairman, I'd like to put a proposal forward, if anybody seconds it, that the working group doesn't consist of 3 Conservatives, 3 Independents, 3 non-aligned members. I'd like to propose, because it is important, and I think as many members should be involved as possible, and I do take on board that not everybody likes big working groups or large working groups. I'd like to propose it's 4 Conservatives, 4 Independents, 4 non-aligned, and the independent person. Does anybody second that?
That seems to be seconded, so that's a valid amendment, which I'll take a vote on. Deputy Leader, would you like to make any comment at this stage?
Thank you, Chairman. My comment would be I can support the 4, but I have reservations in any case about the independent person, who I can't see there's any sign of any independence. I don't even know who it might be or who we might be choosing from at the moment. So for that reason, I couldn't support that. I mean, I've heard names mentioned in several places, but in my view, there would need to be due process to appoint such a person. We can't just have someone plonked on it. And in fact, I don't think it should be someone who's not a member of the council at all. I don't think we should have it. Mrs. Stamp, or Councillor Stamp, would you be happy to make your amendment just referring to 4, 4 and 4, and for the time being leave the independent person off?
No, Chairman. I think we can go through the process to have the independent person, and it can be open, as long as members don't think it's going to delay the process. That's the only thing. And I'll take Councillor. Mr. Dodson's looking at me, and if he'd like to speak, he can say why.
Yeah, Councillor Siddle.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with Councillor Thompson. yeah, I can see the need to seek expert advice, and I think that's part of what the working group should be. But this vague, independent person from who knows where and who knows what, yeah, to me, this is unconstitutional. This is a working group for council members, and therefore it should just consist of council members. So I can see in the report that the officers recommend that we seek advice externally, and we look for experts to bring that advice. But in terms of an independent person who we do not know, I can't agree to that.
Yeah, Councillor Swain.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm in a bit of a confusion here because we look like we're going to be voting on the motion, and then we've got the terms of reference as part of the recommendations of the officers, which we will be voting on, and we want to ensure that there isn't some conflict.
Yeah.
So to vote on setting up the working group, and then we perhaps should look at the terms of reference. I entirely agree with what the officers and what Mr. Quelch said relating to this other person, this outside person, and that is, including that is not a good idea. But if one looks at the terms of reference, then we can, I would actually propose that we amend the term professional to expert, because I think that allows, but that is further down the line when we come to vote on the terms of reference.
I think there is a suggestion of terms of reference within the officers' report. Councillor Durham.
Thank you. I agree with the Deputy Leader and Councillor Siddle. I just fail to understand what an independent person, a person off the street or a parish councillor or whoever it is, not a member of here, what they're going to bring to it. Now, the 5-year land supply and its calculation is a technical exercise with, should be an established formula. We represent the residents, and some of us understand the planning process better than others. I don't see what an independent person who perhaps has no experience is going to bring. Now, what Councillor Siddle is absolutely correct. What it needs is somebody with expertise, but they can, of course, be called as a witness to the working group. Somebody that can actually say, this is a formula. This formula has been agreed at planning inspectors' reports or whatever. So we need an expert, not an independent person.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you again, Chairman. I just wanted to add to what I'd said and what Councillor Siddle and Councillor Durham have said. Anyone can bring evidence to this working group. The working group can ask for evidence from anyone. That isn't the same as making them a member with potentially a vote on any recommendation that comes out of it. And my understanding, although I've not seen anything written down, is that this is a chairman of a parish council. Well, if one, why not 31, however many parish councils we've got? We need due process to pick such a person. I actually think it's we're barking up entirely the wrong tree. We get evidence from wherever, and we need professional advice that's completely independent of the council and the area and indeed the district. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Chair. Interesting debate. The wording is actually a person who is not a member of Malden District Council. So it's not an independent person, it's a member who's not a member of Malden District Council. Yeah. And I hear what people say. I think it could be easily sorted by we either withdraw that from it or we give the person who the working party agrees to come no voting rights. But
what I would like to do is first establish that the working group is set up. Which I think we've agreed. And then I'll need to break little 2 down into, I see you, Mrs. Stamp, I need to break little 2 down because I would like to populate the working group with members' nominations, first of all, and then perhaps we'll need to have a vote on this other person.
Chairman, I'll withdraw the additional person. So we'll just go 4, 4 and 4.
Okay, right. Councillor Stevens.
Would you like to second that? Sorry, Chairman, somebody seconded me, so we've got to withdraw it.
Is that seconded? Yes, that's seconded. Councillor Stevens.
Can I clarify why we would want 4 of each? I'm not really understanding why it just gets bigger and bigger. I thought 3 of each would be more easy to manage and I just think we need to have a reason.
I tend to agree with you, Councillor Stevens. I would have thought 2, 2 and 2 would have been a better, more effective working group, but that is the council's apparent wish that it's at least 3, 3 and 3. Councillor Fluker.
I think, Chairman, I think the prejudice as to why we want 4, 4 and 4 can be seen tonight, Chairman. This is clearly not everybody's favourite topic, what we're dealing with tonight. And, I've been to working groups recently where there's been very few people there, and I know that a lot of people work, like myself, work very hard during the day and find it really hard to fit these things in. But we've got to understand, Chairman, that sometimes not everybody can get to every meeting, and I think 4, 4 and 4 I think is a good number, and I'd be very surprised if they all turned up at all of the meetings. And now I can hear my friend to the right agreeing with me, so we have 2 votes for that. So I would say that 4, 4 and 4, Chairman, is a good mix. I don't know how you're going to choose these people, but I think it's the right number.
Councillor Stevens, had you finished or you want to come back?
Thank you. Well, there were 2 parts to my question.
Sorry.
I don't think that it's necessary to have 4, but obviously we might disagree with me. But the others, I'd like to understand if that's going to be a permanent arrangement, or will the proportions alter if the formation of the council alters?
This group, I don't perceive this working group going on into the next council. I would hope that it was able to report by November. I would hope, but I mean that's something that we can debate later on. Councillor, Deputy Leader.
Councillor Thing, thank you. Well, I have a reservation. If we're trying to populate this tonight, I can't speak for any other group or indeed non-group, but we've not had a chance to prepare for a 4th person.
Councillor Durham.
Well, Chairman, it just in answer to the point that was just made. Again, this is something that needs sorting out quickly. It's not going to run into the next administration. In fact, my view would be that the working group could probably all meet for an entire day with the relevant expertise and kill it off in one foul swoop. This is not going to run on and on and on like a lot of our other working groups, and I would certainly like to see it finished by November.
I would be proposing that whatever happens, that the working group report back by November. And I think Councillor Lagan's in agreement. Councillor Swain.
Just like to point out that we seem to have a general rule that if other councillors want to participate in working groups, they can do so. Setting it at 333, as in the recommendation, would still allow other members to contribute, if not actually vote on it.
Right, we have, I think, an amendment to little 2 that it's 4, 4 and 4, full stop. Is that agreed? Do I need to take a vote on that? All those in favour, please show. That looks. This is for 4, 4 and 4. Your mic isn't on, Councillor Fluker.
Sorry, Chairman.
You keep coming back. You're only entitled one speech.
But Chairman, it is not a speech, it's a question, and I've asked for a recorded vote. And my dear friend who's no longer on this council used to do this all the time, and the Chairman responded.
You can, of course, have a recorded vote. I don't know why you need one, but there you are. It's the vote is for those in favour of 4, 4 and 4, which I thought we got a majority support for if it wasn't unanimous. Miss Bird, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, Chairman, of course, members, if you could indicate for, against, or abstain when I call your name, please, starting with Councillor Bassett, please.
4.
Councillor Miss Beale.
Against.
Councillor Brian Beale. Councillor Bell.
Against.
Councillor Boyce.
Abstain.
Councillor Jewett. Okay, sorry, apologies. Councillor Durham,
Abstain.
Councillor Edwards,
4.
Councillor Mrs Fleming,
Abstain.
Councillor Fluker,
4.
thank you, Councillor Hull,
4.
Councillor Lagan,
4, please, Tara.
Councillor Nunn,
4.
Councillor Shaughnessy,
4,
Councillor Siddle,
Against.
Councillor Skeens, is he present? No, I think he is, sorry. Councillor Bexley,
4,
Councillor Stamp,
4,
Councillor Stevens, Councillor Swain,
In the interest of time, against.
Councillor Mrs Thompson,
against.
and Councillor Ms White.
4.
Chairman, the results are 10 for, 6 against and 3 abstentions.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
That amendment is then carried, and therefore the working group will consist of 4, 4 and 4. And the member and a person who is not a member of Malden District Council, we will need to take a separate vote on that. Is there any other thoughts on this other person? Does anybody else want to speak about it?
Chairman, I withdrew it.
Yes, I know, but
Oh.
I had that as part of the main motion, so that I assume still is the substantive motion now is 4, 4, 4 and 1 independent and 1 who is not a member of Malden District Council. Have I got that right, Mr. Dodson?
Yes. Could I refer to my report?
Yes, yeah. Please do.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm picking up from the officer's report that was circulated to all members on this specific point, and point 3.6.3 of the report speaks to this item. So I'll just highlight it for you. It's considered that the inclusion of an external member of the working group, whilst possible, may leave the council open to a future challenge to the 5-year housing land supply methodology. On this basis, officers have recommended the working group be limited to 9, 12 now, as you're saying, but that the working group is given the ability by council through its terms of reference to be able to seek independently professional external advice. Can provide further detail of why that would be an issue if there was an independent or non-member of the council who sat on that group. I was going to go to the terms of reference, but I'll leave that.
Well,
for
I
now,
think
Chairman.
we'll sort the terms of reference. We'll just take a vote on this issue. Councillor Lagan, you look like you want to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking a lot and I appreciate the time. Just interestingly, what would a future challenge be?
Could it be?
Or could it be?
So I think councillors need to think that the 5-year housing land supply is more of a matter which is considered for planning applications. So the local planning authorities' conduct in terms of determining planning applications considers as a material consideration the 5-year housing land supply, particularly if the housing land supply is less than the 5 years prescribed by national policy. So we have to, I think, therefore, consider the legal you could end up getting challenged through the appeal process, and the methodology's got to be able to withstand a high court challenge, because high court challenges can sort of eventually the product of the 5-year housing land supply could get into the High Court, could get into the Supreme Court if it was challenged any further.
As I said earlier, members, there would be nothing to prevent the working group calling evidence from anybody they think may be able to assist. Councillor Swain.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. In recent discussions about the Code of Conduct, the monitoring officer has been quite clear that working groups are counted as having an influence on policy, and it seems to be even more extreme if you have anybody outside the members contributing to what would in fact be a body that's counted as influencing policy. So I endorse the view that it's very unwise to include such a person officially on the committee, on the working group.
We'll take a vote on that now, then, members. Is that okay, Mr. Quelch? Is that the appropriate action to take?
Well, yes. I mean, it's in the original motion, isn't it? And
Yeah.
It's in the original, and you've broken it off from the original, but you can do that.
Yeah.
So yes, so you've got 444, and you're now deciding on whether there should be a non-council member.
Yeah.
I think that's legitimate.
Okay. Councillor Swain?
Yes, Chairman, are we in fact then voting on the second recommendation, little Roman 2, except 444 instead of 333? Are we confirming that recommendation?
I thought we'd agreed 444. We are now just looking at the other part of the motion that talks of a non-district council person being a member of the working group. The officer advice is that we should be very careful. And as I said, the working group can call another.
Effectively
but
endorsing a
it wouldn't be a
recommendation.
part of the working group, but just give information, advice, whether it be expert advice or non-expert advice. Councillor Lagan, Councillor Fluker, Councillor Durham.
Thank you, Chair. Well, in that case, I think it would make sense to actually withdraw that part of the motion, because that makes things a lot
Does
simpler.
that agree with your second, by your seconder?
My hand.
Yeah, okay, right, so that is not the case. Now, can we look at the terms of reference?
Chairman, aren't you populating it?
Well, what I would suggest after the view, yes, we'll populate it with 3, 3 and 3, and then we'll, no, wait a minute, please. We'll populate it with 3, 3 and 3, and then we'll see if the two groups can then come up with another nomination. But if they can't, I would suggest that they give the notice of the other person to officers at a later date. Would that be appropriate, Councillor?
I'm happy with it.
You are, okay. Yeah. All right. We'll populate that then. Councillor Durham.
Thanks, Chairman. Before we get into talking about the terms of reference and all that, and this meeting going on for hours and hours and hours, I just really wanted to establish what this working group is going to do. Now, this working group is not setting policy. It's not coming up with a new method of working out its 5-year land supply. It's identifying an already established and tested method of establishing a 5-year land supply and applying it to Malden.
It was agreed that the working group is established to consider the 5-year housing land supply, and that recommendations from this working group come back to full council for ratification.
But that's exactly what I'm saying, Chairman.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what council has agreed.
But it's not. The working group is not coming up with a special Malden formula for calculating the 5-year land supply.
I don't know. I can't prejudge what the working group might come up with.
Well, okay, all right.
It's difficult to answer that without going into the terms of reference themselves, but that's certainly what the terms of reference set out, is confirming the methodology that's currently used and then comparing any alternative 5-year housing land supply methodology that can be evidence as having been used successfully in other English local planning authorities.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Stamp.
Chairman, but I did say that I would like to amend the terms of reference, so I don't think we should vote on it now,
All
so
we're
we've
doing-
got an option
all I
to
want
do
to
it.
do is to populate.
Yeah, I agree.
The working group.
But I don't want to vote on.
Mrs. Thompson, what are the Conservative nominations?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillors Channer, Durham, Morgan and Thompson.
Okay, Councillor Siddle,
Thank you. It is Councillor Edwards, Councillor Siddle, even Stiddle, because I'm going to say the next name. Too many S's. Councillor Stilts and Councillor Swain. There are.
right, now the non-aligned people, a group of 8 non-aligned people, it is for the council to appoint, but it would be helpful to council to have 4 nominations. Councillor Stamp.
Chairman, can I nominate some, please? I'd like to nominate, I've got to remember the names now, haven't I? I'd like to nominate Councillor Lagan, Councillor Fluker, Councillor Spenceley and Mark.
And Councillor Bassett.
Passenger. Thank you, Chairman. Do I have a second?
Is that agreed by council? Agreed. Right. So we have the 12 names now, Miss Bird, which I'm sure that you'll have noted. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you. Right. Now we look at we look further at the report of the Director of Strategy, Performance and Governance, and look to the terms of reference, which are Mr. Dodson. Would you like to speak on 3.5?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think all of the business that the report concerned has been agreed upon. So yeah, just speaking to the motion, the terms of reference itself, I've set out under 3.5 within the report proposed terms of reference for the working group, trying to keep it as simple as possible. I think what's really important is that there's a very clear terms of reference so that there's no further room for confusion or debate once the 5-year housing land supply is agreed and referred back to council for approval. So I think it's fairly clear what's put forward there. Confirm the methodology, compare any alternative methodologies, potentially seek independent professional external advice, and that could also include a view from an external source on the proposal that's put forward as a final methodology, and then for the group to recommend the methodology that should be used in future to make that recommendation to council.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Dodson. I see you, Mrs. Stamp. That's the 4 bullet points there. Now, Mrs. Stamp, you want to not amend, but perhaps add?
No, I would like to put to council that we amend some of the wording, Chairman.
Have you got this written down so you can hand it to me?
I have. I've got it written in scrawly writing that I've amended. Can I read it for members? Because they may not agree with me, Chairman.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So if we go to 3.5, and forgive me if I get it mixed up, I've got it on. Confirming the methodology or evidence, so that's the new bit, that could be used by Malden District Council to estimate the 5-year housing land supply, including any evidence-based circumstances or studies regarding approved housing units can be included or excluded, Chairman. And then the next bit, comparing any alternative 5-year land supply reporting methodologies that can be evidenced as having been used and not challenged and found to be flawed in any other English local planning authority. So what's that asking for?
Belt and braces, I think.
It is actually giving the working group the spec to actually look at it that could or may not prove or disprove the 5-year land supply, Chairman.
Can you remind me what your alternative to determine, the word determine is?
Where
in the first one, confirming
evidence, where is it?
To determine the 5-year housing land supply.
It's estimate, Chairman.
Estimate.
Yeah.
Now, can somebody help me? The definition of determine or estimate, which is the sounder wording? Determine. Yeah, I would have thought so.
I'll change it then, Chairman.
But the second bullet point, what you say, I think, is just belt and braces to what it's saying. You're not really.
Chairman, I just want it to be more flexible. The working group needs to be able to look at everything, and I think it's too tying down. We have to be, the group's got to be trusted, Chairman.
Yeah, but the bullet point says evidence as having been used successfully in other English, and you're saying and not challenged. If it's been used successfully, then it hasn't been challenged, or if it has been challenged, it's overcome that. Councillor Siddle.
Thank you, Chair. I can see what Councillor Stamp is trying to do. However, I think if we put this additional verbiage into the terms of reference, it actually makes it more rigid and less flexible. And I think the way that it's written at the moment gives more flexibility.
Okay. Councillor Durham.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I'm just going to go back to what I said before. Everybody is aware that there are developers challenging our calculation of the 5-year land supply. So the object of this whole exercise is to establish a method of calculating our 5-year land supply that can be defended at appeal in the High Court or even the Supreme Court, as has been put. That is the objective of this working group, not to come up with a method that gives us the number we want, but to give us a number that we can stand by and substantiate.
And this from the last.
And I think that the wording in its existing, it gives us the flexibility to do exactly that.
Yeah. Mrs. Stamp, you've heard some alternative views. I don't know whether your amendment was seconded, but do you wish to continue with your amendment, or in view of what has been said?
Chairman, I think Councillor Swain wanted to speak, so I'm going to give way until everybody's actually talked about it, because I think Councillor Siddle knew what I meant, and maybe you know what I mean. I prattle on sometimes instead of getting to the right words.
Yeah. Councillor Swain.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think all that Councillor Stamp has tried to put into here will be covered by the working of the working group. I have two words I wanted to change in this, and perhaps one of them might allow the flexibility that Councillor Stamp wants, and that is to change confirming in the first bullet point to considering, which would allow all the intricacies that Councillor Stamp is trying to inveigle into this as suitable for the working group to consider.
Well, that's an interesting view. Is there anybody else who should speak before I ask Mrs. Thompson? Yeah, Mrs. Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I do understand what Councillor Stamp is saying, but my own view would be that methodology would necessarily include examination of evidence. It's not a separate thing, and therefore what is already here in the report would cover it. Thank you.
Considering.
Mr. Dodson, would you be happy with considering instead of confirming? But members have got to believe that they're not taking away any of their flexibility in what they do by putting considering instead of confirming. Considering. Okay, do members agree considering? Yeah. Right, thank you. So therefore, I put the proposed working group terms of reference. Sorry, Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Chair. I just Councillor Durham said something very interesting about we're not trying to find a solution or a different way, but we're looking at the different methodologies. And I think the working group needs to have that degree of flexibility, look at all options that are used by all planning authorities in the United Kingdom. And if there is another methodology for that methodology or that way to actually come in a report to council for council to make that determination. I think it's very important that we look at that.
Well, this you're getting on to doing the working group's work, I think, at the moment. Right, Councillor Swain.
Yes, the other word I wanted to change, and I think we talked about this aspect, is to, in bullet point 3, to change professional to expert. I think professional could be rather limiting as to what professional we're talking about.
Profession, or the oldest profession.
Expert is somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Yeah. I think that's a good point, and we need to actually consider what the alternative is. Councillor Lagan again.
Yep, again, thank you, Chair. I disagree. I think being an expert, there's a subjective nature of what is an expert.
Well,
because I'm a highly qualified health and safety professional, but I'm no expert in the whole field. So I think there should be definitely scope for other people who can bring something to the table, and the working group should have the ability to go to other people to bring information in there.
This is why I was querying actually expert instead of professional, but was looking for a more inclusive word. So if anybody's got their thesaurus handy.
Yeah, or professional. Yeah.
Mr. Dodson.
Thank you, Chairman. It's not to put an alternative, just to say I think the term professional is important because this needs to be definable. I think, as Councillor Lagan said, you can't define an expert. It's subjective. And this could be a professional. It could be professional planning advice. It could be a professional barrister who's giving us advice. It could be a peer. So it's clear we can get a range of advice and a range of people, but I think the term professional is really important because it classifies the level of advice. And in building on what Mr. Winslow said earlier around challenge, if we've got that professional advice, then that should ensure that we're less open to challenge than we would be.
Would it not suffice to say independent external advice? That's more, or do you want Councillor Siddle?
Profession tends to indicate that they are qualified in some way, so that's why I think professional is important to be there.
Okay, is that the general view? Then we stay with profession. Councillor Lagan.
Sorry, Chair. I do think it's too limiting. I mean,
you've made your point on that.
I was just going to say that
you think it would be changed.
Well, you see, I think that I listened to what Mr. Winslow says, and I agree that there could be challenges, but with this council's been challenged before with professional advice officers doing the work they do. So I don't think we should actually be with that thinking head on to look at what resources that are out there within the district, and I think it should be district based because it is our district, that could be called upon to actually offer some insight for us.
A simple answer to this is there has been a proposal that the professional be changed, and there has been arguments from officers and members to stick with professional. So those who agree with sticking with professional, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We stick with professional then. That's a democratic way of sorting that argument out. So therefore, we now have the 4 bullet points of the proposed working group's terms of reference. Are they agreed? Thank you. Mr. Dodson, or sorry, Councillor Thompson, is there any other matter on that? On this issue, on this motion? Then I'll come to Councillor Lagan to sum up. Although we have taken all the necessary votes.
Yes, we have taken all the votes, haven't we, Chairman? And no, nothing further to add, but thank you for the opportunity.
Therefore, I think the meeting is finished, isn't it? I therefore close this meeting at 2019.